In this video, we're going to look at depreciation. So there are three main types of depreciation. We've got straight line depreciation, reducing balance depreciation, and unit cost depreciation. And we're going to go through the three different types. When we're looking at straight line depreciation, we're thinking of anything that decreases in a linear fashion. What that means is as an item depreciates over time, it will depreciate with the same amount over time, which is where this question comes from. When we're looking at how much it depreciates over time, if it depreciates in a linear fashion, as I've said, this is going to be the same amount every single year. What that means is, for example, with this question, if we start off with a certain amount and we end up with a certain amount, which is the scrap value here, we're going to have a depreciation value per year which is going to be the same every single year, and in this case was next 6 years. So to find this, all we simply need to do is find out how much on average we are losing per year. So this here is the amount of depreciation loss over time, and this here is the number of years it takes before it depreciates. Once we put this into the calculator, we should get $4,166.67. This is how much this machinery, is going to lose over the course of 6 years. One of the other things that we can do with straight line depreciation is we can find the book value over time. Remember, this is the amount that it costs to purchase after a certain amount of time. The formula for the book value is here. Now, when we're looking at this formula, we need to look at the principal that it starts off with. In this case, it will be $450,000. Although it says its current book value, we're looking at this comparing to the factor in 7 years' time. Because this is the current book value, it's essentially a principal amount. Principal amount is just for starting at any point in time, and then we are looking at how much it ends later on, which is the 7 years' time. Once we put this into the calculator, we should see that we have $198,000 left on it. What this means is if we want to buy this later on after 7 years, this is how much it will cost. Another thing that we can do is we can find the amount of time it takes before it reaches a certain scrap value. So we'll just put everything in here with the formula. This is a book value after the certain amount of time. This is a principal amount it starts off with, and the obvious unknown that we have here is the amount of time. Once we put this in, we can use solve. Remember, on your calculator you have a solve function for this. Once we put this into the calculator, we should see that t is equal to 11.111. There are loads of decimals after that, that's fine. We don't need to worry about that. However, if we read the question, it says in how many years and months. Now this first part here is in years. So we actually have 11 years. And we want to find the second part for months. To find the second part for months, we need to look at the decimals. We have 0.111. And we need to multiply this by 12 months. Because this is currently in years, if we multiply it in terms of months, which is 12 months per year, then we can get this in months. Once we put this in, we should see that it's 2 months. Now, although on your calculator it might say 1.332 months, that's actually incorrect. Now, you might be tempted to round it off to 1 month. However, if you round it off to 1 month, the machine won't actually reach that value while it's depreciating. It needs to be 2 months for it to reach that value. It won't reach it in 1 month. This is why you should answer it in 2 months. Reducing balance depreciation looks at the amount of depreciation over time as well. However, when we're looking at reducing balance depreciation, we are actually talking about an amount that changes over time. This amount changes with the power, which is up here. So if we look at this question, we want to find the book value over time. We have a principal amount of $100,000 on this one. We have the depreciation rate of 15%, and we have the time being 8 years. When we're putting this into the calculator, remember this here is actually a power, so make sure you use the hat or the caret, whichever one you want to call it. And when we put this into the calculator, we should get that amount down there. My suggestion to you would be try it on the calculator. If you don't get the exact same value, make sure you're putting in the hat before you put down the 8. This is not a multiplication, this is a power. Last thing we need to look at is a unit cost depreciation. This is a depreciation based off how many copies of stuff you make. If it's a photocopier, or if you're making items, or if you're making a 3D print, if you're using a 3D printer, how many things you're printing out. This is normally based off how many copies you make, so we need to look at how much you lose per copy, which is the unit cost depreciation. When we're looking at the unit cost depreciation, this is based off how much you start off with, which is the principal amount, the scrap value, so you need to subtract that because we want to look at how much is being lost over time, over the amount of copies we make, and because we're looking at how many copies we make, we need to look at our expected life. In this case, we have the principal amount being $10,800. Our scrap value is $180, and the expected life is $900,000. When we put this in the calculator, you should get $0.0118 per copy. What that means is each time when we actually photocopy something, we'll lose that amount per copy. Now, the second part's looking at how much what the book value is after making 120,000 copies. To look at this, we need to think about how much is being depreciated first, and by looking at that, we're saying over how many copies, after producing a certain amount of copies, how much would we lose? So we know we're making 120,000 copies. On each copy, we're going to lose $0.0118. So when we put this in, we know we're going to lose $1,416. The second part then is to look at the book value after the depreciation. We start off with a certain amount, which is $10,800, and we're going to subtract out how much we're depreciating because that's how much we're losing. Once we put this in, we should see that we have $9,384 left.